Alright, so today we're making jelly. What we're doing is making bullberry jelly. This is what bullberries look like. These were picked by Ryan's students last year and the year before. So we're just trying to juice them right now. Now there's a few ways that you can juice berries. What we have here is a steamer, and this is what you normally use, which is a juice bag, and it's kind of made out of like a kind of cheesecloth like substance. So what you do is you usually get a stand, and it's a metal ring, and you just pull this over the ring, and then as you're boiling your berries, you put the berries in here and it strains out the juice. If you use this method, you never want to squeeze it, because otherwise you'll get a lot of like foam and stuff that you don't want. The other method is to layer several layers of cheesecloth over a sterilized strainer, and then pour the berries through there into another container. But this is our steamer, which I like a lot better than the other way of doing it. This steamer of course has the three parts, which is, this is where your water goes, and the water, you just put it in there, you boil it, it never comes in contact with the berries, which is a lot better, because normally you would put the berries in with water and it just kind of, it doesn't seem to give you as much juice. Anyway, so here's where the juice collects from the berries, and we can look in there and see, it's like there's like a strainer and there's like a little cone thing in there so the steam can get to it, and the juice is all in there. And then this is of course where you put the berries, and so everything just kind of, gravity and the steam, it just makes a cycle in there, and it helps the berries to juice a lot better than they normally would. Plus you don't get a lot of foam like you would with berry bags. You don't get a lot of foam buildup. You don't get a lot of icky stuff that you just kind of don't want, because a lot of times you have to scrape that stuff off the top. So this I really like a lot better, and I think we paid about $100 for this. So it was a good investment, since we do a lot of canning. Now the other thing with this is we have a bunch of jars here. Now this is not sterilization. You have to wash your jars by hand with hot soapy water, because you want to be able to look at the jars and feel the jars and make sure that there's no cracks or chips or anything like that, because that's very important. And so I'm just washing them right now by hand. Never put them in the dishwasher, because you can always get like food deposits back on the dishwasher or the soap or something, and then your batch is just ruined. So it's best to wash it by hand, and that way you can inspect the jars as you go along. And then over here, I just put down this old pillowcase, but you know, you want to make sure that everything that you have is clean. And so we have the clean pillowcase for the jars to sit on, and I've also separated the lids out so that when it comes time to sterilize the lids, then I can do that easily without having to separate everything over again. So that's where we are at right now. Okay, so we're going to sterilize the jars now, and what I've got here is a pot of boiling water, and I've also got 2 ounces, or 1 ounce, which is 2 tablespoons of white vinegar, and that will just keep it from getting the water stains on it. Okay, in there I've also got one of these, which is important because you never want the glass to touch the bottom, except that I flip mine over because this pot is not large enough for me to fully immerse the jars, and that's what you want to do. So these are jar grabbers. You just grab around the rim, make sure that you fill it with water, and then put it on the bottom. And we're going to let these boil for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then they'll be ready to use. So that's the sterilization. Alright, so my jars are all sterilized now, so I'm using the jar grabbers to get them out. And you gotta be really careful at this point because they're very hot. It's important that you put them upside down, just so that nothing will get into them while you're waiting for your jelly to get ready. And another important thing about sterilizing them is that if there are any small little cracks or nicks or anything that you missed when you were washing them, or maybe imperfections in the glass, when you're boiling them, they'll break. And so then if they don't break, then you know that they're good, and they'll keep your food fresh and sealed in there once you're ready to can whatever you're making. Okay, I'm just finishing sterilizing lids. I did the same thing with the jars. I put them in and I boiled them for 15 minutes, except that I did not add the vinegar in here because I don't want, because the adhesive is kind of permeable, you don't want vinegar in your jelly because it'll make it taste icky. Anyway, this is a lid grabber, as you can see, and that's just so that you don't have to put your hands in the hot water. And it's just magnetic, so it grabs up your lids nice and easy, and that way you don't have to touch the hot water, and it will keep our lids sanitized as well without getting your fingers on them or anything in case your hands are dirty. But when you're canning, you should always make sure that your hands are very clean, because you could contaminate your canning process if they're not. So that's sterilizing of the lids. Okay, so we're getting ready to do the juice. Out of the 2 large bags of berries that we had, they were large freezer Ziploc bags, I got 5 liters of jelly, or of juice, which I separated. So right now I have 3 liters of juice. And so for each liter of juice, you need 1 packet of pectin. And this is the cooking pectin. You can also use freezer pectin, which is a no-cook thing, but I don't do that. So we're going to put in 3 packets of pectin into this juice. And we're going to dissolve it in there, and then we're going to let it come to a full rolling boil. Now in here I have 15 cups of sugar, because you need 5 cups for every 1 liter of juice. So once it comes to a full rolling boil, then I will add in the sugar. Okay, our jelly is at a full rolling boil. And so now we're going to start adding in the sugar. It's easiest just to use this ladle. Just ladle it in and stir it as you go. And the sugar will dissolve in there, and it won't be long before it turns into jelly. It'll be maybe about 10 minutes or so. Oops. Spilling sugar. Okay, so I'm sterilizing this because we're going to use it. Just by pouring some boiling water over it. Anyway, you can see that we have a full rolling boil again. So I'm going to turn on my timer for 1 minute.
It's climbing.
Yeah, so we stir it down because you need it to have a hard boil for 1 minute. Which is what this is currently. It's a hard boil. So we need it to boil for 1 whole minute, and then we can skim off the foam. And then we'll start filling our jars.
You can just use any funnel for that?
Yeah, pretty much. As long as it's not too small. This is a jelly funnel, so it fits the jars. So, and it's to keep the rim clean because you don't want your rims to be dirty. Otherwise, the jelly won't, the jar won't seal properly. So you have to make sure that the lips are clean, but we'll go over that later.
5 seconds.
So what we'll do is we'll just turn that off already. And I kind of spilled some water here. Okay, so now we'll just pull that off of there, off of the hot one that was just on. And we're going to let it kind of come down a little bit so that it can skim off the foam. And I'm going to use a spoon So as you can see, it's kind of stopped boiling now. So I'm going to start carefully just putting that across the top, and you need to have a container ready for it to go into. So I'm just using this bowl just to try and get off as much foam as you can, because if you don't, it'll make your jelly cloudy and it won't look as nice. But if you look at the juice, it's kind of become like a ruby red almost color, like a ruby red grapefruit. And if you look at the original juice, it's more pink. And that's just because the juice just seems to change color for blueberries after it's been cooked on its own without the berries in it. So, all right, so now we're gonna start getting the jelly in, and I've got some paper towel that I dipped into the boiling water that I had before. Okay, and I will bring this over here. So just put that in there and see if it's just the right size for jars. I'll just move this closer because we don't want to make too much of a mess. And as you can see, I skimmed off all the foam that was on the top, so now it's nice and clear, which is what you want to see. It will make your jelly really nice and clear too. There won't be much in the way of foam. Okay, so now you just want to fill it until it's just to the bottom lip of the, when you see it just touch the bottom lip of the funnel. Okay. And then now we're going to take our cloth and just make sure that it's clean on the top, because you want to make sure that there's no jelly on it and no sugar, nothing like that sticking to it, because otherwise it'll be harder. So now we take one of our snap lids and we're going to put that one on, and then we take a one of our rings and put that on. And this jar is really hot, so you got to be careful. And so we want to close it like that. Now what we're going to do next is, in our sterilizing jar, I'm going to boil water, and then we're going to boil the jars so that they'll set properly. Okay, so that's where we are now. Okay, now we're going to start sealing the jars, and as you can see, it made quite a bit of jelly, just 3 liters. I've still got 2 liters left to do. So when we put these in, because we're not sterilizing the insides, this is just to seal the jars. We can actually put them in, we can put in more than just 1 layer at a time, because normally you just put in 1 layer. So these smaller jars I can put on top. I can arrange them on top of the other ones. And we're going to boil these until we start hearing popping, because that will indicate that the jars are sealed once they start popping. A few of them may have already sealed, but this will just ensure that they are completely sealed, and we're not going to have anything we're not going to get any kind of bacterial growth in there or anything gross in there. So it's really important to seal your jars this way afterwards. Because this is jelly, we don't need a pressure cooker. If this was something that was really acidic, like tomatoes or lemons or something like that, then we would need a pressure cooker. But with just plain berry jelly, we don't need to worry about that. So we can just use this to the same pot that we use whoop, sometimes that happens, they fall in, it's okay. The same pot that we use to sterilize the jars in is what we're going to use to seal the jars in now. And once they're all sealed, then we can either, you can eat it within like a week. I'd usually give it a week, just to make sure that everything's fully jellified and all that. And then after that, they're good for, I think it's up to 5 years. They're good. So it's that's it. But yeah, later we'll mark the tops of the jars with you can either use the stickers that come with the jars, or you can use you can just write on the top with a magic marker. It doesn't matter, as long as you put the date and what it is, because a lot of times you might forget what it is that you jellified in here, because a lot of the different jellies kind of look the same. Actually, I'm going to stop it there because I don't want it to boil over. But yeah, so we're going to let these ones seal, and once I start hearing them pop, then I'll know that they're ready to come out. And if they're all popped, that's great. Occasionally they don't pop, one or two, and so in that case, then you need to redo the lid process, because it just means that they aren't sealed properly. So we have to make sure that all of them pop. Okay, so this is most of what we have. We also have these ones over here. This was altogether 5 liters of juice that has turned into jelly. All of these popped. I had one earlier that didn't, and so what I did was because I was making this in 2 batches, I had removed the jelly from it and I put it into the second batch of juice, and then I just did the whole sterilization process again and relidded the jar and everything. So this is what it looks like when it's finished, and it's quite a bit different from that kind of milky pink color. It's more of a jewel red, and I've labeled them, and it's good to label the month and the year on all of your jars, and also what it is, because sometimes when you're making jellies, like this could very easily be like raspberry or strawberry jelly, and you wouldn't know it unless you labeled it. And also so that you know how long it's been in there. So this one, October 2014, should be good for another 5 years, maybe even longer. As long as the seal holds, it can be good for, I've been told, up to 10 years, but I don't really know about that. I haven't actually had one last that long. But everybody will really like this jelly, and you got to give it a few days. It'll jellify. Some of them, like the smaller ones, already have jellified, so you see that, like, that's still pretty liquid in there, but this one is not, because it's much smaller and it was able to cool. We are lucky that we didn't have any leftovers this time. Sometimes you might end up with a little bit left over, and that's okay. Just put it, like, if you only have like a half jar full or something, just put it in a jar and just use it right away. That's fine. Just keep it in the fridge, but don't go through the sealing process, otherwise it won't, it could shatter the glass because it's not completely full. And this is the leftover foam. Don't be surprised if you get a lot of foam when you're scraping it off. And as you can see, it's pretty jellified, the foam. It's kind of gross, but don't be surprised if you get a lot of foam. That's really common. It's normal to get that much foam, but it is a little bit less because we put the butter in there. So it's a little bit less than we would normally get. Without butter, you'd probably have to have a much larger bowl to scrape all the foam off. And now I just got to clean up.